Hello, everyone. This is Will Booth from DNA Business Management Solutions. Thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn titled Automating Your Sage 300 Business Process Through Workflows. And we'll be showing some remote functionality with that. And we are recording today's sessions, so all attendees are in mute. If you have any questions, you can put it in the questions tab on the GoToWebinar screen. There's also a chat if you want to chat with me. I'll be monitoring that. But today, I'm happy to have Scott and Rob on with us from Rob Lavery and Associates. And I'm going to not really waste any time. I'm going to hand it over to Scott. So let me hand you the baton, Scott, make you the presenter, and you've got your screen up, I think.
I do, thank you.
So, so today's session is going to be based on some products from Orchid Systems, one of the key ISV solution provider for many, many years for Sage 300. So Scott and Rob are just going to walk us through some of the components for being able to automate business processes and workflows in Sage 300 with some remote functionality that's been added recently. So Scott, I think you've been working with this tool for quite a while. You've got a good strong background in it. So I'm going to hand it right over to you. And I'll again, if you have any questions or want to chat, I'll be monitoring that. And we'll probably hold most questions till the end, but if there's something I think we need to answer or we can answer quickly, I'll put it through. I'll just let you know. Does that work?
That sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Will, and thank you for everybody for attending. So as Will mentioned, I am going to show you a product that was developed by Orchid Systems. And what that product is actually called Extender. So what Extender is a way for you to configure, customize, and extend Sage 300. So what I'm specifically going to show you is mainly the workflow functionality of it. And so with other workflow modules, you'll typically get it tailored to one part of your business process. And what Orchid has done here is, because it's a way to extend your Sage 300, they've actually got it so that you can tailor it to whatever your needs are. So you can hook up a workflow to screens already existing in your Sage, whereas other modules may sort of add a different user interface for you. So keeping your day-to-day process pretty much the same, but adding a sort of approval process with it. And in that, as Will mentioned, there is going to be some remote functionality shown. So that is this remote action and this workflow anywhere. So I'm just going to jump right into showing you the product. And we're going to start off with a purchase order workflow. So inside of Sage 300, you would log in as logged in as the administrator. You would log in as whoever you need to be, and you would have this extender module that's installed right into your Sage 300 system. It sits in there just like any other Sage module. And in there, you've got these workflow templates. So in the workflow template, that's where you would set up what is going to happen. So in terms of your approval process, how it's going to be routed and all stuff like that. I'm going to start a purchase order workflow now. So like I said, it's sort of integrated with your normal Sage 300 module. So you'd open up purchase order entry, just like you would normally do in your day-to-day currently. Put in a purchase order. So I'm going to choose the vendor, select an item, fill in any necessary information that I will need. Let's say we'll buy 100 of those. And once you've filled everything in, you would just click the post button as normal. So once I've clicked that post button, what Extender is actually going to do is jump into the process here, and it's going to trigger a workflow. So you can set that workflow to trigger based on a number of different things. In this case, it is the post button. So I've triggered that. The workflow has told me that there is a workflow in progress and that PO has to be approved. Until then, it has been put on hold. So you can notice, if I go back to that purchase order, the on hold flag is now ticked. Now, There is security around these workflows so that if somebody wanted to come in here, take it off hold, they could try that. But if they try to post it again, it's going to alert them and let them know that there's a workflow in progress for this purchase order, and you can't take it off hold. So if you go back, it's been placed back on hold. It needs to be improved before it can progress. So all the user that needs to approve would do is go to their workflow console, which is under the extender module. So we go in their workflow console, and you'll notice that a bunch of these have color coded, and that can be done. It's all customizable as part of the workflow. So that can be done to represent different stages that the workflow is in. If you have, let's say, multiple approvals, or if there is a certain dollar threshold that you want to signify, these colors can be anything. They can also represent different departments. So whether it's purchasing or it's sales, something like that. Completely customizable, but you have the option for visual effect to have color coded to signify different things. So you'll notice that 1205, that purchase order workflow instance is now in our workflow console. And from here, I can highlight it, choose this drill down option, and I can take a look at any necessary information that I would need to, whether it be vendor information or take a look at the purchase order itself, because the approver is not likely the person that submitted the purchase order. So they may want to drill down and take a look at everything on there. So we have easy access to get in there. Once they've reviewed it, they can close that, and all they would need to do to take it off hold is hit the approve button. Once they've done that, it would normally be taken off hold. In this case, there is more security in the workflow where it's saying that the team member who entered the PO cannot approve it. So just a little extra security around that. So you'll notice that the workflow is assigned to the purchasing manager here. And what that means is in the setup of the workflow, you have these user groups. And so you can send the approval to multiple people, and you can decide whether one person needs to approve it, two people need to approve it, the entire group. That's all up to you. But we can decide to send it to a group rather than to send it to one individual person. So I'll just go into my purchasing manager here, see who that is, and that's Dan. So that workflow is going to be assigned to Dan. So Dan is the only one that can approve it. So I'm going to log in here as Dan. And you can set it up. So just normal Sage authorizations and stuff, you can set it up so that Dan only has access to the workflow console. So you can remove all of these extra things here and only show this. So Dan would log in, go to his workflow console. You'll see the amount of workflow instances has diminished because these are only ones that have been assigned to Dan or a group Dan is in, aka the purchasing manager group. So what Dan would do, he can review just like I showed you before. And once everything looks good, highlight it and just click approve. So the actual approval process is fairly simple. You can tailor the workflow to ask for a comment. So Dan can just say it's okay, looks good, something like that. Click OK. And from there, it's going to disappear from the workflow console eventually. And then once it's disappeared from the workflow console, oh, get rid of that. You know that it's been approved, and you can go take a look at the purchase order entry screen, and that purchase order should be taken off of hold. So I have the purchase order 70, no longer on hold. So that's one way that you can go about approving. The other way is actually the Workflow Anywhere app. So what the Workflow Anywhere app is a mobile app on your phone. And you can basically see the workflow console, that approval area, on your phone. And I'm unable to show you the app working through this. So I took a couple screenshots today and sent them to myself. So this is your approval console, what it would look like inside of the app. And then once you click on one of those workflow instances, you would be taken to this screen. So you're given the basic information from the workflow instance. What's in this case, it's an AP invoice batch. It tells you who it was submitted by, when it was started, the batch number, and who it's assigned to, and how much it's for. And from there, you can click the accept and post button, or you can reject it, anything that you would be able to do in your workflow console. So speaking of remote, there is another option as well that we have developed. And this was taken from a specific case with a client that was looking to have some sort of remote way to approve. And they were specifically using Adobe Sign for this one. So we've updated what we call our remote action service to include Adobe Sign. And it's not just for Adobe Sign. You can also use DocuSign or really any other signing thing that you can use over the internet. So I'll log into this company here, my Adobe one. And for this one, I've set up a workflow for an invoice batch. So I'm just going to create a new invoice batch. Let's just call it Adobe test. Enter all of the necessary information that I'll need. In this case, I'm just going to put a random invoice in there, put a random amount. Going to add that to the batch. That's okay. And then I'm going to post the batch. Are you sure? Yes. Now, once I try to post the batch, the same thing's going to happen where it's going to tell me that it's kicked off a workflow. And in this case, I'm going to receive an email notification from Adobe telling me that this batch needs to be signed. We'll wait for it to kick in. We get that notification. Batch status currently remains open until it's been approved. We'll close that, close this batch, and I'll actually receive an email from Adobe Sign telling me that something requires my signature. So we've set it up that the workflow will send you this email notification. You'll get this email, and from there, Adobe Sign basically takes over. So you can click, yes, I want to review and sign. What we've done is created a sort of PDF version of your batch list, so you can get any information that is available in Sage is on here as well. The look of this can be tailored to whatever your actual AP invoice batch forms or reports would look like. And you can review everything you need to. Once you've happy with everything, you just click there to sign as you would with normally with Adobe Sign, DocuSign, anything like that. I'll apply it, finish it off in Adobe, and now you're all set. So how this is going to translate over to Sage is, I will close that, reopen my Sage. And in the remote action, we have what we call the poller. So what the poller is going to do is take the information from that Adobe Sign and bring it into Sage. So all you have to do is run this poller. Now this can be done a couple different ways. You can manually do it. So log into Sage, double click this poller, and it'll run for you. The other option is Orchid has a different product called Process Scheduler. And it's exactly as it sounds. You can schedule different processes to happen at certain times in Sage. And so you can run your poller every hour, at the end of every day, something like that. So you can set that up to do it automatically. So it'll bring those approvals in. For now, I'm just going to double click the poller. It's going to go out, look to see if there's any approvals that need to be brought in. And if there is, it's going to bring them in. So you see it's actually posting the batch right there. So it's recognized that that approval has already been done outside of Sage, and now it's going to bring that through. So one approval applied successfully. Okay. And if we go back to take a look at that invoice batch list, this Adobe test batch has now been posted. So we've figured out a different way so that you can approve remotely, you can approve from the workflow console inside of Sage, or you can use that mobile app that I talked about as well. Now, there's also other features that come along with Extender. So I'm just going to highlight a few of those for you as well. Go into a separate company here, Orchid Ltd. Log in. So with Extender, as I said, it is extending your functionality in Sage. So there are other options that you can do. Some of them are, so audit logging. You can set up, configure it so that different things that happen in Sage, let's say changing a customer's credit limit, even things just as simple as logging in and out of Sage can all be kept in this log here. Bunch of different things that you can set it to log, but for this one, I'm going to show you an example of changing the actual customer credit limit. You're going to notice a window on the right side of this screen when I open it up, and that's a different project that Orchid creates. It's called Orchid Notes. So what this is actually going to do is utilize both of them. So it is going to keep it in that log there, but we've also configured it to show the credit limit in a notes on the side here. So you can see the last time it was changed was actually this morning, changed from 20,000 to 15,000. So if I'm a user and I want to change this customer's credit limit, I can go in here, let's change it back to 20,000. Once I click save, it's going to notify me that an email was sent. So that's another feature of Extender where it can give you the access to email notifications. So anything that happens in Sage, you can get notified about it as well. And so I would receive an email notification that I've been receiving a bunch throughout this whole process, but this is the one that we're looking for. So it's notified me as the admin user that this customer's credit limit has changed from 15,000 to 20,000. Change was done by admin and when it was done. So it's going to tell you who changed it, when it changed, and what changed. And so if I actually exit that and go back in, you'll see that it's now changed. So it was changed from 15,000 to 20,000. So that's another little feature that Extender offers you. And all of this is done with what we would call Extender Configurator Edition. There is also a second version of Extender called Developer. And what Developer does is actually allows you to add custom tables to store information, develop custom screens, add buttons to screens to run certain processes within Sage, create custom actions for those workflows that I showed you. And I'm just going to give you a quick example here. In the purchase orders, you'll notice that there's an extra button on this screen, extra two buttons actually. This print to PDF and print email PDF. Those were added in using Extender Developer. So what this does is actually allows you to, let's move on to a different order here. So once this is posted, completed, whatever you need to do, you can select print to PDF. And what it's going to do is PDF this PO and store it somewhere inside of your environment for you. So in a network folder, something like that, you could set it up to do sort of Dropbox, Google Drive, stuff like that. So it's telling me that it's created it. I can exit out of that, back in, and now you can see that it's stored here, and you can open it up, take a look at it. And then the button next to it is actually a similar thing where it's going to do the same thing in PDF, your purchase order, but then it's going to email it to your vendor. So just things that you can do to automate your processes, Extender can help with that. Pretty much anything that you can think that could be automated, you could probably do with Extender. And when I mentioned that you could have these sort of custom things in workflows as well, what we've done actually is this exact thing where as soon as the PO is approved and taken off hold, we've automatically generated the PDF, and then we've sent it to the vendor as part of finishing the workflow. So even adding certain buttons, automating things, you can take it a step further and have it automatically happen once you've approved it in the workflow. So I've kind of shown you everything that you can do. You can set up these workflows for anything in Sage. So you can do purchase orders, you can do sales orders. I showed you the changing of the credit limit, and yes, you can log that, but you could also set up a workflow around that as well. So if you need approval to change your credit limit, whether it's every time or if it's above a certain amount, you can set up a workflow for that and have an approval. There's really almost no limits to where you can set up a workflow for, and it doesn't change anything in your normal processes besides the actual approval itself, because everything is still being done on your normal Sage modules, the normal way you would do it. So I think now I am actually going to open it up if you guys have any questions.
All right. That was great, Scott. I really appreciate that. Let me just check. So first question was, is there any limit to which versions that this capability will work with in Sage 300?
So I think most developers do have, it's current year, 1 year back, 1 year behind. I don't think, I think so that's like working on current versions.
Yeah.
I think the same thing probably goes here.
Yeah, I think for Extender, you have to be on version 2018 or newer.
Right.
Because Extender came out after that version, right? So if anybody's on an older version than that, they would need to do an upgrade before we can even add Extender, and then of course some of these other approvals online.
Right.
The next question was, what do I need to be able to use the remote action? I guess they're asking like what kind of technology is it through? How does it communicate through IaaS, or is it direct communication? That sort of question, just the technology behind it.
Yeah, so with remote action, there's kind of two versions of it. We have upgraded it sort of to that Adobe Sign feature. Before that, it was really just you would receive an email with a web form, a link to a web form, which is hosted by AWS, Amazon.
Yeah.
Once you click that, it would take you to a web page where you could take a look at the basic info, the same kind of stuff that you would have seen in that I showed you in the app.
Yeah.
So all of that same information.
Okay.
And then you would have the option to approve or reject and leave a comment. So it's the same kind of idea. It's hosted by AWS. You get an email, click a link, click approve, and then you run the poller to bring that into Sage.
Yeah.
And then we've added this Adobe thing, which again, it also works with DocuSign and other things along the same lines, so we actually did find out that with the Canadian government at least, Adobe Sign is a approved way for like audit purposes.
Oh, okay.
So it's an approved way for you to do that stuff, which is part of the reason we added it. But also on top of that, we sort of PDF'd the invoice batch, so you see all of the entries, and you get a little bit more, you get all of the information that you would probably need in terms of approving.
Yeah. Okay.
I should actually, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I should actually show this, which I talked about the audit logging and logging different things in Sage, but you also have this workflow detail log. So if I show you this, if we scroll all the way to the top, I'm in a different company here. Anyways, this actually shows you every step in your workflow, so you can take a look and you see what user approved it.
Right.
So the workflow itself also keeps its own audit log. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. The next question was, could Extender have refreshed the notes window as well?
Sorry, What do you mean by that?
Um, the notes,
Uh,
the notes window will refresh anyway, right? Or I think, um, oh, you know what? I suspect, if you want to update your question, go ahead, Mike. But I think maybe he's asking if you do, could you kind of have an approval and have Extender update the notes as well?
You could absolutely do that. So if you remember that I showed you, so in the customer screen, that's where we saw the notes.
Yeah.
If you open that up, so this is updating the credit limit. You can choose a number of different things to put into this box here. It doesn't have to
Right.
be updating the credit limit. You can see that the change was done. So it's taking the user that did the change. So stands to reason that you could also put in who approved it if it
Right.
was done as an approval.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
a
that
number
makes
of
sense.
different variables that you can include in there.
Okay. So and I mean, to that end, like this process could be just about anything that you want to approve. Could be, we didn't show everything, but I mean, have you worked on different types of projects for different types of approvals in Sage 300 aside from kind of today? Could be, I'm trying to think, is there anything we haven't discussed, just so people know that, there are
Uh,
functionalities in there that we can have an approval on.
yeah, so the options are almost endless as long as it's something that's taking place in Sage. So in terms of AR, you can do invoices, you can do pay receipts, you can do approvals around adjustments, refunds, anything like that.
Right.
AP, you could do invoices, payments, all of that stuff as well. With EFT, you could do it around generating an EFT batch. If you wanted to, like I said, change the customer credit limit, you could do it around that. Adding items into IC, you can do it around that as well. Sales orders, purchase orders. So yeah, pretty much anything. um, you
Okay.
can set up a workflow around. I've even done workflows where it's like as part of the workflow, you can evaluate certain things that are on or in the view or on the screen. So
Right.
one of the things is optional fields. So if you need certain optional fields filled in with a certain value, something like that, the workflow can also check that and make sure that that's done correctly too.
Right.
And not only that, it could actually check something and then set the optional fields for you as well.
Right. Okay.
So and you can get very creative.
Yeah, no, totally get that. Let me just check in here. We've got some good questions. I guess when I got a follow up to the notes question. It said you had to exit and reopen the notes window to refresh it. Could you do that with Extender? I guess is what they were meaning. Is there another way to not have to remember to exit and enter the notes window? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, it does make sense. It could be something that you could automate is refreshing it. The only reason I really had to do that is because I had that window open the entire time.
Right.
Typically, if you're the one changing the limit, you'll probably change it and then leave. And then that note is available for anybody that goes in there so they can see what happened. And as soon as you open it up again, that's going to be updated.
Right. Okay. Let me just check here again. Good questions, everyone. Got a lot of, just make sure there's nothing in the chat too, no. Okay, so yeah, one more. Could we add a workflow to another module such as fixed assets? So a third-party module, for example.
Absolutely, yeah. So especially with fixed assets with norming, that's actually done in Sage's SDK, just like Extender is. So it sits in your Sage environment, just like any other module. And yes, we can absolutely create a workflow around that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I'll just give another second here if anybody else has questions. It's been very interesting, and some of our clients have started to take advantage of these features. So if you have some questions, here I'm gonna make myself presenter here again.
Sure.
Give me 1 second, and then I can just show my screen and. Just close this. There we go. So if anybody's got any questions, I want to thank you for your time, Scott, and for preparing this interesting and demonstration of these functionalities, especially with the update with the Adobe. That's very interesting. So if anybody has any other questions, you can call us at the office or just send a note to Mike or Michelle or I. You can just either send it to sales, and one of us will pick it up, or you can call the office and ask for either of us. We're happy to talk to you about it. If we need to get Scott on the line to talk about the the capabilities and will it fit within your solution, we can always do that. If you wanted to have a more specific demonstration that might fit for your organization, we're happy to do this. But it is this whole process has really, especially with recent events and people having to be more remote and work from the non-office environment a lot more, if not all the time, it really does help push out the capabilities of Sage 300 and put it in the hands of the people that need to review and approve stuff without having to necessarily, be on a remote desktop or terminal server or log in through the VPN. So it's been very interesting, and that's why we've kind of had this presentation again today, because we've had a lot more questions even in the last couple of months. So I do appreciate you taking the time, Scott. Again, everybody, please stay safe. If you have any questions, just reach out to us at the office. We'd be happy to chat and provide you with more information. And yeah, I think I don't see any other questions at the moment, but feel free to email them to us. We're going to send out a recording of this event, and you can just reply back to us if you do have any questions. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time, and have a great day. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Will, and thank you, everybody.
Okay, talk to you later.